right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Well, thanks very much. Good evening, everyone. It is another edition of the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call right here on Pittsburgh CW. Bob Pompeani, flanked tonight by Andrew Fillipponi of 93.7 The Fan. You can call us on the Bordas and Bordas hotline, 415-2600, or you can tweet us at KDPomp, at The Pony Show, and Andrew will be part of our number one Cochrane Sports Showdown tonight. Join us after the late news on KDKA. We have a lot to get into. Tim Benz and Will Graves also on the panel. We'll begin with the Pirates here tonight, Andrew, and let's talk a little bit about what they did in St. Louis. It's pretty impressive when you consider that they had struggled against good teams, and after 17-4 pounding in Game 1, after they blew one here before they left, and that 6-2 lead that turned into a 9-6 loss, pretty good response by a team at this point.
I would have signed in blood for a split at that point, especially with Steven Brault on the mound Sunday. You didn't like your chances with a guy who had posted an 8 ERA on the mound for that game. So you went into this series, Bob, with a 1-11 record against teams with a winning record, and finally the Pirates showed us in this series that not only could they beat a good team, but they could go on the road and beat a good team. Yeah,
and certainly St. Louis has some of their as well. We often focus on the Pirates, but sometimes their bullpens are not very good. Their outfield plays sometimes are not very good, and I think we saw that in play. But the Pirate pitching came up, especially with Crick and Vasquez. And the one thing that we found out, of course, is that Clint Hurdle will not put guys out there if they get to a certain level of pitch count. And we saw Neil Huntington today on his pregame show on The Fan. Andrew, talk about we're not going to risk a guy to injury, even if it means losing a game early in the season. And my only problem with that comment is it does not jive with what Clint Hurdle said the other day when after the game not using Vasquez in a save situation. It was the 8th inning, albeit, but he said he was prepared to go only in a save situation, which is exactly what that was.
Yeah, the bases were loaded and the tying run was at the plate, so it was a save situation. I don't like saving guys for games, Bob, in August and September that might not count, let alone games that are happening this weekend in St. Louis. So I think you try to win the game that's in front of you. And let's face it, if Vasquez comes into the game for Feliz there and gets Hunter Pence, then you've got a 4-run lead going to the 9th inning. You can have Tyler Lyons or trust one of those guys who are down the bullpen pecking order to pitch that game. I thought Huntington would try his best to make an excuse for the Pirates losing that game, but it still doesn't fly for me. As good as this series was in St. Louis, there was a game against Texas that 99% of the time they should win. They have the best closer in baseball in Vasquez, and when you only need situation to win the game, I think you have to give him the ball.
Absolutely, especially after the manager says afterwards he was available in a save situation, which is exactly what happened. Anyway, the Pirates respond. They'll head down to Arizona. We'll talk about some other Pirate issues. We'll also get into the Steelers, and they had their rookies in town this week. And Andrew, we talk and spent a lot of time talking about Devin Bush, 10th overall pick. They trade up to get him, which means they expect things from him. The question is, how much do you expect from a rookie, but a rookie who will be expected to come in and fill the shoes of a guy who was very good at it after 1 year went by where they did not adequately fill that void?
I expect him to be the best defensive rookie in football. I think that's when you trade up and take a guy 10th, and I believe he should be the starter getting the lion's share of the snaps day one. Why not? I mean, a second-round middle linebacker was the defensive rookie of the year last year. Without Darius Leonard, the Colts aren't a playoff team. So that's how I look at Devin Bush going into the season. He is the X-factor player for them, Bob. If he has some growing pains, if it's kind of a gradual thing with him, I don't think the Steelers' defense is going to get much better. But if he makes a big impression, a big impact from day one, then I do think this team has a lot of upside. I think the ceiling is high for them if they find a Ryan Shazier replacement in Bush.
Other things we're talking about, the Boston Bruins went up 2-0 on their series with Carolina.
Do we have to talk about that?
Well, we're not.
Well, I came here and said Carolina was. We had that debate. I said Carolina was the sleeper in the Metro.
I didn't like that.
Well, okay, I got them through to the Eastern Conference Final.
The sleeper would take me all the way.
And you said you wanted Tampa, right?
I said Tampa was the best team going into the playoffs.
And you picked them to win the whole thing.
No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I picked the Boston Bruins to win the whole thing. But then I switched off to St. Louis once St. Louis got hot, and that's what I do. But anyway.
You did a mid-playoff switcheroo?
Everyone does that. You flip-flop every time. Anyway, we'll talk about that. And I know that Golden State is sitting there waiting for Portland. You're not going to want to talk about this in Pittsburgh, but you missed 2 really good playoff games in the NBA. If you want to talk about it, this is your place to do it because Andrew and I both like the NBA. There was a shot that we've never seen before, a game-winning buzzer beater in a Game 7. We'll talk about that. We'll take your calls, and we'll do it when we come back. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call right here on Pittsburgh CW. The Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call is brought to you by Ireland Contracting, putting new roofs on Pittsburgh homes for over 25 years. Call Ireland Contracting at 1-800-NEW-ROOF.